You ever think about those harmless distractions? What if every single one came with a hidden price tag? Well, today, we're going to dive into a modern-day parable that asks exactly that. It's the story of a place called Pleasureville, and it all kicks off with a simple fork in the road.
And really, this is the big question at the heart of it all. When you choose that next scroll on your phone, or binge one more episode, or just go for that easy dopamine hit instead of chipping away at a long-term goal, what's the real cost? Let's unpack that.
All right, so let me set the scene for you. Our story follows two friends, Evan and Rev. They're on this tough, spiritual journey. And then, bam, out of nowhere, they run into something totally off the path. This huge, glittering, over-the-top amusement park. And this is where they have to make their first big choice. And this is where you really see the two of them just diverge. Evan, he's all about discipline, about staying focused on the mission. He looks at this park and just sees a massive, dangerous distraction. But Rev? Oh, he's instantly hooked. The promise of easy fun, amazing food, and all that attention, it's just too much for him to resist. He's more than ready to ditch the hard road for some instant gratification. And boom. This is the moment everything changes. Evan's trying to point out these warning signs all around the park. But Rev? He literally can't be bothered. The print's too small, he says, and the smell of the buffet is just too good. He makes a very conscious choice here, to be ignorant so he can go chase that pleasure. So while Rev is off living it up, Evan actually stops and reads the signs, and he discovers the fundamental law of Pleasureville. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is free. Every ride, every snack, every single bit of fun adds to this hidden, invisible tab. The real kicker isn't if you'll pay, it's when. So what does Rev do when he's confronted with the rules? He just makes up his own reality. He literally declares himself an I-shallist. It's his personal way of justifying ignoring any and all consequences. He basically believes that if he just identifies as an exception to the rule, then the rules just don't apply to him. It's a really powerful and, as we're about to see, a really dangerous idea.
Okay, so now it's time to pay the piper. We're about to see what happens when that unseen tab finally comes due. Rev's choices are about to catch up with him in a very, very real way.
And it's not just one big payment, It's this slow, step-by-step breakdown. First, his spiritual glow. The light around him just starts to dim. Next, after spending way too much time on the roller coaster, he literally loses his sight. Then, he gets into the bumper cars and his legs get totally mangled, forcing him to crawl everywhere. And for the grand finale, to pay off his insane debt, he has to sign away his own freedom for 6 years of washing dishes. He's traded his entire autonomy for a few cheap thrills. But you know what's absolutely wild? It's how he justifies every single horrific step of this decline. When he goes blind, he doesn't see it as a loss. Nope, he frames it as a newfound freedom. Freedom from the boring old constraints of reality. He figures he can now live completely inside his own head, in a fantasy world he creates himself. And Rev isn't the only one paying a steep price. Evan meets this character called Ghost Abby, and her story is just as tragic. She also thought of herself as an exception, choosing to ignore the signs. For her, the price wasn't physical. With every ride she took, a little piece of her soul was left behind as payment, until her entire consciousness just shattered. She became this transparent, ghostly shell, forever stuck in the park.
Then you've got Diesel. He ignored the warnings too, and he just went all in on a life of me, me, me. The price for him was his own spiritual energy, his connection to anything bigger than himself. He literally shrank, becoming this tiny, parasitic creature that has to feed on the energy of new people he tricks into coming off the path.
But Evan doesn't just leave them there. Before he goes, he makes this huge promise. He tells all the lost souls of Pleasureville that he'll be back in 6 years to save them. And this sets the stage for a seriously dramatic climax. And you know what? He actually does it. He keeps his word. He spends 6 years training, and he comes back as this incredibly powerful warrior. He completely demolishes the park, the Ferris wheel, the roller coaster, all of it, to break the chains holding these souls. He uses his own spiritual power to pay off all their debts, and in a flash, they're restored. The blind can see again, the lame can walk, the ghosts are made whole. It's an incredible moment. So for a hot second, it's this amazing, triumphant scene, right? The crowd is cheering for Evan, calling him a hero,
promising to build statues of him. But as that initial high starts to wear off, a really important question comes up. Was any of that gratitude actually real?
And here it is, the shocking turn. As the people stare at the smoking wreckage of their playground, that gratitude just sours and turns into pure rage. They don't see that they've been set free. All they see is that their favorite toys have been taken away. The very guy who saved them is now the bad guy who ruined their fun. And just like that, the mob turns on him. And this is maybe the biggest gut punch of the whole story. Rev, the friend Evan came back to save, sees the angry mob and makes a cold political move. He promises the crowd he won't get in their way as they try to kill Evan, and in return, they just have to promise to get together and rebuild Pleasureville. He chooses a fake unity built on distraction over loyalty to the person who saved him. Now, Evan manages to get away thanks to a last-minute rescue. But the people? Well, they get exactly what they screamed for. Their park gets rebuilt. So, what does this brand new version of their dreamland even look like? The new reality is bleak. The old park was all about chaotic fun with a hidden cost, but this new park, which they've proudly named Socialist Freedom, is the exact opposite. On the surface, it's silent, it's orderly, it seems safe, but it's just a different kind of prison. They've just swapped enslavement to pleasure for enslavement to a rigid, controlling system. I mean, get a load of what life is like here now. Everyone lives in identical little boxes. Nobody talks to each other because they're afraid. Speech is limited to just 100 pre-approved words a day, and the whole time, a new, hidden owner, get this, his name is Serpent, is just quietly siphoning off all their energy. They just traded one terrible boss for another. So when Evan, along with a now reformed Rev, comes back to give them one last chance, a final offer to leave and get back on the path of real growth, the crowd shuts them down. They flat out reject them. They make it crystal clear they prefer their new, controlled life. They don't want the hard work of real freedom. They'd rather have the predictable comfort of their cage. And that really is the haunting question this whole story leaves us chewing on. The people of Pleasureville chose safety over sovereignty, comfort over consequence. And in the end, they got exactly what they asked for. But you have to wonder, what did they lose to get it? The story seems to suggest that if you make a cage comfortable enough, people might just forget they're in a prison at all.